So let me get this straight. You abducted children? Human children? General Vrazak's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, each pair taking turns to express his mounting horror. Lieutenant Krill shifted uncomfortably in his exoskeleton. Well, technically, sir, they were adolescents. The tallest one was nearly at full growth potential. Oh, well, that makes it completely better then. The general's voice modulator crackled with sarcasm that even the ship's translation matrix couldn't soften. I'm sure the humans will be absolutely thrilled we only stole their almost grown offspring. Brilliant work, Lieutenant. The command deck of the Glorious Voidwing fell silent. The dozen Zentari officers monitoring their stations suddenly found their control panels absolutely fascinating. No one wanted to make eye contact with the general, whose chromatophores were cycling through increasingly alarming shades of purple and red. Krill's antenna drooped. Sir, if I may explain, please do. Vrazak settled into his command chair, steepling his 4 hands in what the crew recognized as his "this better be good or someone's getting spaced" pose. I'm absolutely dying to hear how you've managed to potentially start an interstellar incident with the one species the High Command explicitly ordered us to assess from a distance. It was supposed to be a routine observation mission, Krill began, pulling up a holographic display. We identified a remote educational facility. Oh, what now? A school, sir. Oh, stars preserve us, Vrazak muttered. We selected this facility specifically because it was isolated, with minimal security. The plan was to extract a few specimens, perform standard cognitive and physiological testing, then return them with their memories adjusted before anyone noticed they were gone. The general's eye stalks extended to their full height. And what part of observe from a safe distance did you interpret as kidnap their young from learning centers? Sir, the High Command wants comprehensive data on human capabilities. After 3 cycles of remote observation, we still can't explain how a species with such primitive technology managed to defeat the Kronos Armada. Vrazak winced at the mention. Everyone in the galaxy had heard about that embarrassment. The mighty Kronos, with their quantum phase weaponry and time-dilating tactical drives, had attempted to claim the Sol system as tributary space. They'd returned with half their fleet in ruins, and a peace treaty that essentially amounted to, "We'll stay on our side of the nebula if you stay on yours." So your solution was to grab some half-grown humans to... what? Dissect them? Krill's exoskeleton clattered in agitation. Nothing so primitive, sir. We conducted standard non-invasive scans and a series of intelligence tests. Their results were... perplexing. Something in Krill's tone made Vrazak pause his tirade. Perplexing how? Perhaps it would be easier to show you. Krill manipulated the holographic interface. We placed them in separate observation chambers with puzzles of increasing difficulty. This was the eldest specimen. The hologram shifted to show a human male, approximately 16 Earth years old according to Krill's notes. The boy had shaggy brown hair and wore some kind of standardized cloth covering. Blue leg casings and a dark upper garment with incomprehensible symbols that the ship's AI translated as science. It's like magic, but real. The human was examining a 3-dimensional puzzle that the Zentari used to test spatial reasoning in developing minds. Most species took several hours to solve it, if they managed at all. Watch his approach, Krill said. The human studied the puzzle for exactly 2.7 minutes, then promptly took it apart and reassembled it in the correct configuration in under a minute. That's impressive for a juvenile, Vrazak admitted grudgingly. Now watch this. Krill forwarded to another recording. The same human, now presented with a logic problem involving quantum state variables that most Centauri scientists needed specialized training to comprehend. The boy stared at it, frowned, then spoke to the empty room. Hey, is anyone watching? This is kinda boring. Also, I'm pretty sure these symbols don't make sense together. Like you've got a quantum uncertainty principle mixed with what looks like a Schrödinger equation, but the variables are all wrong. Vrazak's mandibles clicked in surprise. How does a juvenile human recognize quantum notation? That's what we wondered, Krill said. So we sent in a drone with more advanced problems. The hologram showed a small spherical drone entering the chamber with a data pad. The human immediately perked up. Oh, cool, a robot! Wait, are you guys aliens? Am I on a spaceship? That is awesome! The human's excitement was impossible to miss, even through the translation matrix. This is the part that concerned us, Krill said quietly. On the recording, the boy took the data pad and began working through the problems, occasionally murmuring to himself. Okay, non-Euclidean geometry, with a 4-dimensional transform. I think I read about this in that paper Dr. Nishimura published last year. After 10 minutes, he handed the pad back to the drone. I think I got most of them, but that last one needs a supercomputer. Or like, a really good graphics card at least. Krill froze the hologram. Sir, these were university-level problems by their standards. He solved 8 of 10 correctly. Vrazak leaned back in his command chair. So they're intelligent. We knew that already. Sir, this was the least concerning specimen. Krill swiped to another recording. This one is 14 Earth years old. The hologram showed a smaller human with curly red hair, wearing similar standardized coverings but with some kind of decorative outer layer that sparkled when he moved. We gave him the same puzzles. He solved the spatial reasoning test even faster than the first subject. But then, on the recording, the younger human had apparently become bored and dismantled the drone that had brought the tests. He disabled its defensive protocols, Vrazak exclaimed. Yes, and then he repurposed its components. Krill sounded pained as he continued. He constructed a rudimentary energy pulse emitter and disabled the observation room's force field. The hologram showed the boy triumphantly walking through where the invisible barrier had been, grinning and fist-pumping the air. The ship's security systems contained him, Krill assured quickly, but he should not have been able to construct anything functional from a Class 3 observation drone. Vrazak was now fully attentive. And the third specimen? Krill's exoskeleton rattled in what the crew recognized as extreme discomfort. The third one? Well, she's the reason we're having this conversation, sir. The hologram shifted to show a human female, approximately 15 Earth years. She had dark skin and hair bound in complex patterns. Her clothing was similar to the others, but with added decorative elements and colors that Vrazak assumed indicated some form of social differentiation. What did this one do? Build a fusion reactor from spare parts? Vrazak's attempt at humor fell flat as Krill's antenna drooped even further. Sir, she hacked our communications system. She what? She fashioned a crude interface using components from her observation chamber and gained access to a tertiary communication node. Krill sounded simultaneously impressed and horrified. She transmitted a distress message with our exact coordinates before we could cut the connection. The command deck went absolutely silent. Even the constant hum of the ship's atmospheric regulators seemed to pause in shock. Lieutenant, Vrazak said with unnatural calm, please tell me she was transmitting to other humans on their planet. Krill's silence was answer enough. She sent our coordinates to the human military, didn't she? Their global defense network, sir. And there's more. Krill pulled up a tactical display. We've detected 3 vessels on intercept course. They launched from Earth 8 hours ago. Their velocity suggests they're using some form of modified Alcubierre drive we haven't seen before. 8 hours? Vrazak thundered, rising from his chair. You waited 8 hours to inform me that humans are pursuing us? We thought we could outrun them, sir. Krill protested. Their technological levels shouldn't allow for interstellar pursuit capabilities, but they're gaining on us. Vrazak stared at the tactical display showing 3 blips moving at impossible speeds toward the glowing dot that represented the Glorious Voidwing. How long until intercept? At current velocities, 4 hours, sir. The general's chromatophores settled into a grim gray. Lieutenant, I want those human juveniles prepped and ready for immediate return. Full medical examination to ensure they haven't been harmed in any way. Prepare memory modification protocols. Sir, about the memory modifications. Krill hesitated. They're proving resistant to our standard techniques. It's like their brains are somehow adapting to the neural interface. Of course they are, Vrazak muttered. Because why would anything about this mission go according to protocol? He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the pursuing vessels. We'll explain this was all a terrible misunderstanding. Channel open, sir, the officer replied after a moment. They're responding. The main view screen flickered, revealing a human face. The being wore some kind of uniform with insignia that the ship's AI struggled to identify. This is Commander David Mitchell of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have abducted citizens of Earth. Return them immediately, and prepare to be boarded. Vrazak stepped forward, assuming his most diplomatic posture. Commander Mitchell, I am General Vrazak of the Zentari Expeditionary Force. I assure you this situation is the result of a grave misunderstanding. The humans aboard our vessel were only meant to be temporarily studied and returned without incident. They are unharmed and will be returned promptly. The human's expression remained unchanged. General, you have exactly 3 hours to return our people. After that, we will take them back by force. 3 hours? Commander, surely we can discuss. Those are children you took, General. The human's voice became dangerously quiet. If a single hair on their heads is harmed, what's coming for you won't be a military response. It will be a reckoning. The transmission cut abruptly. Vrazak turned to his stunned crew. Well, that could have gone better. He pointed at Krill. You, get those humans ready for transfer, now! As Krill scurried away, Vrazak settled back into his command chair, mind racing. Tactical, analyze those pursuing vessels. I want to know every capability they have. Sir, the tactical officer's voice was strained. Preliminary scans indicate weapon systems we can't even classify. They appear to be using some form of directed energy technology that our sensors can't properly read. And their hulls, they're absorbing our scanning beams. Wonderful, Vrazak muttered. Science Officer Zend, what do we actually know about human military capabilities? Not the intelligence briefs, the real data. Zend stepped forward, her slender form tense. Very little that's concrete, sir. After the Kronos incident, information has been closely guarded. We know they repelled an invasion force with substantially superior technology, but details of how are classified even at the high command level. Helpful, Vrazak said dryly. Communications. Keep trying to re-establish contact with the human vessels. Maybe we can negotiate our way out of this mess. Sir! The sensor officer's alarmed cry drew everyone's attention. The human vessels have accelerated. New intercept time. 58 minutes. Vrazak blinked, all 4 eyes in sequence. That's impossible. They'd need to be pulling at least 22 Gs, sir. Their structural integrity should be failing. No organic life form could survive that acceleration. A cold feeling settled in Vrazak's thoracic cavity. Unless they've developed inertial dampening technology beyond anything we've seen. Or they're unmanned vessels. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from within our ship. From where exactly? The detention level, sir. Vrazak closed all 4 eyes briefly. Put it through. The view screen flickered again, this time showing the face of the eldest human juvenile. He appeared remarkably calm for someone who had been abducted by aliens. Hey there, ship captain dude, or admiral, whatever. Look, we need to talk. Vrazak stared in disbelief. How are you accessing our communication systems? The human grinned. Your buddy in the chittery exoskeleton left his tablet thing when he ran out of here. Your user interface is weird, but pretty intuitive once you get the hang of it. Anyway, those destroyers heading our way, you really don't want to let them catch up. We're aware of the approaching vessels, Vrazak said stiffly. We are preparing to return you and your companions to them. Yeah, about that. The human scratched his head. You might want to speed things up. Those ships are carrying NEMESIS protocols. Vrazak didn't recognize the term, but something about the way the human said it sent a chill through his exoskeleton. What are NEMESIS protocols? Let's just say they're what we developed after the Kronos tried to invade us. Those ships aren't coming to rescue us. Well, they are, but that's secondary. They're coming to make sure nobody ever thinks taking humans is a good idea again. The boy's expression turned serious. They're delete buttons, General. Big, fancy, relativistic delete buttons. Before Vrazak could respond, the tactical officer shouted, Sir! The human vessels have launched something. Multiple small objects on intercept course. Evasive maneuvers, Vrazak ordered. The objects are adjusting course to match. Impact in 40 seconds. The human on the screen looked alarmed. Wait, they're firing already? That's not right. They wouldn't risk hitting us. He looked off screen. Kate, what did you tell them in that message? A female voice responded faintly. I might have implied we were being experimented on. You what? Both the human boy and General Vrazak exclaimed simultaneously. Sir, impact in 20 seconds! Vrazak made a split-second decision. Drop all shields, power down weapon systems, broadcast surrender on all frequencies. Shields dropping, sir. 15 seconds to impact. The human on the screen was typing frantically on the alien device. I'm sending them our life signs to confirm we're okay. Just don't move your ship. 10 seconds. Surrender broadcast on all frequencies, sir. 5 seconds. The command deck fell silent as everyone braced for impact. Objects have stopped, sir. The tactical officer sounded bewildered. They're holding position 3 kilometers off our bow. On the view screen, the human juvenile exhaled in relief. They got my message. Look, you need to let us talk to Commander Mitchell directly, right now. Vrazak had faced down Nargalian death squads and survived the Battle of Proxima Centauri, but nothing in his long military career had prepared him for taking orders from a human adolescent. And yet, Put him through together with the human commander, Vrazak ordered. The view screen split, showing both the human juvenile and Commander Mitchell. Finn, Mitchell exclaimed. Are you and the others all right? We're fine, Commander. No dissections, no weird experiments. They just gave us puzzles and stuff. The boy, Finn, looked serious. You need to call off the NEMESIS protocols. These guys are just scientists, and not very good ones at that. Vrazak wasn't sure whether to be relieved or offended. Mitchell's expression remained stern. The protocols remain active until you and the others are safely aboard our vessels. Sir, Finn insisted. They didn't know what they were doing was a problem. Their intelligence on us is way off. They thought they were taking some random kids for a quick study, not abducting the children of Earth's top scientists from a gifted program field trip. Vrazak felt his heart sink. Top scientists? Gifted program? This just kept getting better. Mitchell's expression softened slightly. Very well. General Vrazak, we will suspend offensive operations pending the safe return of our citizens. Prepare a shuttle with the 3 teenagers. No escort, no weapons. Agreed, Vrazak said quickly. We will have them ready for transfer immediately. One more thing, Mitchell added. Your ship and crew will remain in custody until a diplomatic representative from Earth arrives to discuss reparations for this incident. Reparations? Vrazak blinked in confusion. But we've agreed to return your young unharmed. Mitchell's expression could have frozen plasma. You entered our solar system without permission, abducted our citizens, and subjected them to unauthorized testing. There will be consequences, General. The transmission from the human vessels cut off, leaving only Finn on the screen. Sorry about that, the human said with a grimace. If it helps, I'll put in a good word for you guys. You didn't actually hurt us, and those puzzles were kind of fun. Your recommendation is appreciated, Vrazak said weakly. Also, you might want to send someone to Observation Room 3. Tyler kind of built something from the parts of your scanning equipment, and it's making a weird humming noise. Vrazak closed all 4 eyes in resignation. Of course he did. 3 hours later, Vrazak stood in the shuttle bay with the 3 human juveniles, waiting for final clearance to launch the transfer vessel. Against all protocol and his better judgment, he'd agreed to accompany them personally, partly as a gesture of goodwill, and partly because he needed to see these humans safely off his ship before they dismantled anything else. So your species doesn't have FTL travel yet, but you recognized advanced quantum equations? Vrazak asked the eldest, Finn, trying to make sense of the contradictions. Finn shrugged. We're working on FTL. My mom's lab has a prototype that might work in a few years. The math is solid. It's just the engineering that's tricky. Your mother is a scientist? Quantum physicist, Finn said casually. She specializes in theoretical applications of zero-point energy. Dad's more the engineering side. He designs containment fields for exotic matter. Vrazak's gaze shifted to the younger boy, Tyler, who was currently examining the shuttle's external propulsion system with unsettling interest. And your parents? Tyler looked up, grinning. Mom designs AI neural interfaces for the Defense Department. Dad's in cybersecurity. They met during the Kronos thing when they had to hack alien tech together. Pretty romantic, right? Quite, Vrazak said faintly. The female, Kate, hadn't spoken much, but Vrazak had been informed she was the one who'd contacted the Human Defense Network. I suppose your parents are also notable scientists? He asked her. Dad's a diplomat, actually, she replied. He specializes in first contact protocols. Mom's an anthropologist studying non-human intelligence models. She fixed him with a pointed look. They're going to have a lot of questions about your abduction methodologies. Vrazak's chromatophores cycled through a mortified mauve. I assure you, this incident does not reflect standard Zentari protocol. Lieutenant Krill acted without proper authorization. Yeah, about him, Finn interjected. You might want to check his personal logs. He kept muttering about how the data would prove his theories and revolutionize the understanding of human capability. Seemed kinda obsessed. Vrazak filed that information away for later. Krill would be facing a review board regardless, but potential ideological motivations would complicate matters. The shuttle bay's communication system chimed. General, the human vessels have granted clearance for the transfer shuttle to launch. Acknowledged, Vrazak responded. He turned to the 3 teenagers. The shuttle is programmed to take you directly to the human vessels. He hesitated. I apologize for the distress this incident has caused. To his surprise, Finn extended a hand. A human greeting gesture Vrazak had read about but never experienced. After a momentary hesitation, Vrazak carefully grasped it with one of his smaller appendages. No hard feelings, Finn said. Next time just send a diplomatic envoy instead of kidnapping kids. Works better. There will not be a next time, Vrazak assured him fervently. At least, not a next abduction. Tyler suddenly looked up from the propulsion system he'd been examining. Hey, before we go, can I ask a question? Those four-dimensional logic puzzles you gave us, what do your species' children usually score on those? They're not typically given to juveniles, Vrazak explained. They're used for advanced academic placement at the equivalent of your university level. Average completion rate is 3 of 10 problems correctly solved. The three humans exchanged glances. And I got 8 right? Finn asked. Yes. So what does that make me in Zentari terms? Vrazak shifted uncomfortably. Based solely on those metrics. Eligible for advanced placement in our theoretical physics programs. Cool. Finn grinned. I'm putting that on my college applications. Shuttle pre-launch sequence initiating, announced the computer. That's your cue, Vrazak said, stepping back. I trust this unfortunate first contact can be overcome, and perhaps our species can establish proper diplomatic relations in the future. Kate smiled for the first time since her abduction. Well, you're about to meet my dad, so you'll find out soon enough. Vrazak's chromatophores paled. Your father is the diplomatic representative coming to negotiate reparations? Yep, he specializes in hostile first contact scenarios. Her smile turned slightly mischievous. Don't worry though, he's actually pretty reasonable. Unless someone hurts his kids, then he's less reasonable. Shuttle launch in 30 seconds, the computer announced. All non-essential personnel must clear the area. Vrazak backed away, bowing slightly in what he hoped was a respectful human gesture. Safe journey. As the shuttle bay doors closed behind him, Vrazak leaned against the corridor wall, all 4 limbs suddenly weak. In less than one ship's cycle, his routine observation mission had turned into a potential interstellar incident. His career was likely in ruins, and he was about to face a probably furious human diplomat whose child he had inadvertently abducted. His communicator chimed. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from High Command. They're not pleased about the situation. Of course they aren't, Vrazak muttered. Put it through to my private quarters. I'll take it there. As he walked the corridors of his ship, Vrazak mentally composed his report. How exactly did one explain that humans, a species supposedly just beginning to venture beyond their own solar system, had not only detected their covert mission but had dispatched vessels with weapons technology beyond Zentari understanding? How did one explain that their juveniles possessed intellectual capabilities that rivaled Zentari specialists? And most importantly, how did one explain that these supposedly primitive beings had forced the surrender of a Zentari military vessel without firing a single shot? The truth, Vrazak realized, was that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone in the Galactic Alliance had imagined. Not because they were inherently violent or aggressive, though they certainly could be when provoked, but because they were adaptable in ways that defied conventional understanding. Their children solved university-level problems for fun. They turned observation equipment into communication devices and security drones into weapons. And when threatened, they didn't panic. They systematized their response with terrifying efficiency. Vrazak had a sinking feeling that the Kronos hadn't been defeated by some technological fluke or lucky strategy. Humanity had simply done what they apparently always did. Adapted, improvised, and overcome. 2 days later, Vrazak stood in the Glorious Voidwing's conference room, facing the human diplomatic delegation. The lead negotiator, as Kate had warned, was indeed her father, Ambassador Leonard Wells, a distinguished-looking human with graying hair and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything with calculating precision. General Vrazak, Wells began, I appreciate your cooperation thus far. It has made this process considerably less adversarial than it might have been. The Zentari Expeditionary Force deeply regrets this incident, Vrazak replied formally. Lieutenant Krill has been relieved of duty pending full investigation, and we are prepared to offer appropriate reparations. Wells nodded. Yes, about those reparations. We've had some interesting discussions about what would be appropriate. Something in the human's tone made Vrazak uneasy. We are prepared to offer technological exchanges or material compensation as determined by your government. Actually, Wells said, sliding a datapad across the table, we have something else in mind. Vrazak reviewed the document, his confusion growing with each paragraph. This is a scientific exchange program? Indeed. Earth would like to propose a formal educational and scientific partnership between our worlds. Wells leaned forward. You inadvertently gave us valuable information, General. Your testing confirmed something we've suspected since the Kronos incident, that despite our technological limitations in some areas, human cognitive capabilities are somewhat unusual by galactic standards. Unusual is one word for it, Vrazak muttered. Wells smiled thinly. We propose an exchange of knowledge. We're particularly interested in your propulsion systems and certain aspects of your materials science. In return, we can offer innovations in computational theory, artificial intelligence safeguards, and several promising branches of theoretical physics your scientists might find illuminating. Vrazak blinked in surprise. You're offering technological exchange rather than demanding punitive measures? Oh, there are still punitive measures, Wells assured him. Your Lieutenant Krill will face appropriate consequences, and the Zentari government will acknowledge the violation of sovereign territory. But Earth believes in turning problems into opportunities, General. Your misguided lieutenant showed us that our species can learn from each other. Wells gestured to a female human who had been quietly observing the exchange. This is Dr. Anna Fitzgerald, head of our Xenoscience division. She has some specific proposals for joint research initiatives. Dr. Fitzgerald stepped forward, her expression professional but with an undeniable gleam of scientific curiosity. General, your testing protocols gave us fascinating insights into how Zentari measure intelligence and cognitive development. We'd like to propose a more formal comparative study, with properly obtained consent, of course. Vrazak struggled to keep pace with this unexpected turn. You want to continue the research that led to this incident in the first place? With appropriate ethical guidelines and mutual participation, Fitzgerald clarified. No more abductions. We'll need to consult with High Command, Vrazak managed. Of course, Wells nodded. We anticipated that, which is why we've already opened a dialogue with your government directly. They find our proposal intriguing, particularly given the demonstration of certain capabilities during this incident. The subtle reminder of how easily human vessels had tracked, pursued, and neutralized a Zentari military ship wasn't lost on Vrazak. There is one more thing, Wells added, almost casually. As part of our exchange program, we'd like to send a small contingent of human students to study at your premier scientific institutions. Students? Vrazak repeated, a sense of dread forming. Yes, starting with 3 particularly gifted ones who have expressed interest in Zentari scientific methodologies. I believe you've met them. Vrazak's chromatophores cycled through a palette of disbelief. You want to send those 3 teenagers to Zentari educational facilities? The same ones who hacked our systems, dismantled our equipment, and called down military strike vessels on our heads? They did demonstrate an aptitude for your advanced placement tests. Wells pointed out with what Vrazak was now recognizing as the human expression of suppressed amusement. And who better to begin a cultural exchange than those who have already had first-hand experience with your species? Vrazak stared at the human delegation, finally understanding what was happening. This wasn't just diplomacy, it was strategy. Earth was using this incident to gain access to Zentari technology while simultaneously placing human observers in key Zentari institutions, and they were doing it in a way that made it nearly impossible to refuse without appearing hostile. You've thought this through quite thoroughly, Vrazak acknowledged. We've had some practice with interspecies relations since the Kronos, Wells replied. We find it's better to establish clear boundaries and mutual benefits from the beginning. The unspoken message was clear. We stopped the Kronos. We could stop you too. But we'd rather not have to. I will convey your proposals to High Command with my full support, Vrazak said carefully. I believe a scientific partnership could indeed benefit both our species. Excellent. Wells stood, extending his hand in the human gesture that Vrazak now recognized. I look forward to a long and productive relationship between our worlds, General, one with fewer surprises in the future. As he shook the ambassador's hand, Vrazak couldn't help but reflect on the irony. Lieutenant Krill had abducted human children, hoping to understand how humanity had defeated the Kronos Armada. In doing so, he had unwittingly provided the perfect demonstration: adaptability, resourcefulness, and the uncanny ability to transform a disadvantage into an opportunity. Ambassador Wells, Vrazak said as the delegation prepared to depart. There is one question that continues to perplex me. Your daughter and her friends, are they truly representative of human juveniles? Or are they exceptional even by your standards? Wells considered the question. They're from our gifted programs, certainly. About 2 standard deviations above our mean, but not unprecedented. Earth has approximately 7 million adolescents of similar cognitive capabilities at any given time. Vrazak's exoskeleton nearly locked in shock. 7 million? More or less. Our educational systems aren't perfectly optimized for identifying and developing all potential talents. Wells smiled in what Vrazak was beginning to recognize as the human expression for, "I'm enjoying your discomfort." Something we hope to improve with some of the cognitive assessment techniques we've observed from your species. As the human delegation departed, Vrazak returned to his command chair, mind racing with implications. 7 million. 7 million young humans with the capability to hack alien technology, solve university-level physics problems, and generally wreak havoc on unsuspecting extraterrestrial vessels. Sir? His first officer approached cautiously. High Command is requesting a detailed report on the diplomatic exchange. Tell them it went surprisingly well, Vrazak replied, and inform them that I have an urgent recommendation regarding human space. Sir? Vrazak's chromatophores settled into a determined blue. Tell them to upgrade humanity's threat assessment classification immediately, and add a specific note to all fleet commanders. What note, sir? Vrazak stared at the view screen where Earth's diplomatic vessel was preparing to depart. Under no circumstances are Zentari vessels to interfere with human juveniles. They're far more dangerous than they appear. 6 months later, General Vrazak stood in the observation deck of the Zentari Science Academy, watching as the first official contingent of human exchange students arrived. Among them, as promised, or threatened, depending on one's perspective, were the 3 teenagers from the abduction incident. General! Finn called out, waving enthusiastically as he spotted the Zentari officer. Check it out, we came through the front door this time. Several Zentari scientists nearby fluttered their appendages in the equivalent of nervous laughter. The incident had become something of a legend in Zentari space. How 3 human adolescents had brought a military vessel to surrender without firing a shot. Welcome to the Science Academy, Vrazak greeted them formally. Your accommodations have been prepared according to human physiological requirements. Sweet. Tyler grinned, already eyeing the Academy's advanced technology with undisguised interest. When do we get access to the labs? After proper safety orientation, Vrazak said firmly, which includes protocols on what you are and are not permitted to dismantle. Kate laughed. Don't worry, General. We promise to behave, more or less. That qualification does not inspire confidence, Vrazak replied dryly. As the human students were led away by their assigned mentors, Ambassador Wells approached. They'll keep your scientists on their toes, he remarked. That is precisely what concerns me, Vrazak admitted. Though I understand your Zentari exchange students are causing similar disruptions at Earth institutions. Wells chuckled. Your junior xenobiologist nearly caused a riot at MIT when she demonstrated your species' approach to multivariable calculus. Apparently, your mathematical notation system is elegantly logical compared to ours. Half the mathematics department is now arguing for a complete reformation of human mathematical syntax. Cultural exchange has its challenges, Vrazak observed. Indeed, Wells grew more serious. The Kronos have been making diplomatic overtures. They're concerned about our new partnership. As they should be, Vrazak replied. The combined scientific potential of our species is considerable. Wells nodded. Which brings me to a proposal from my government. We've been discussing the formation of a more formal alliance, not just scientific exchange, but mutual defense. Vrazak's chromatophores shifted to an alert orange. Against the Kronos specifically? Against any species that might mistake either of our worlds for easy conquests, Wells replied. The galaxy is a dangerous place, General. We've both learned that the hard way. Vrazak considered this. 6 months ago, the idea of a military alliance with humans would have seemed absurd. Now, after witnessing their capabilities firsthand and reviewing the classified reports from the Kronos incident that Earth had finally shared, it seemed like simple prudence. High Command will want to know the specifics, he said carefully. Of course, we're preparing a comprehensive proposal. Wells glanced toward where the human students had disappeared. It's a complex galaxy, General. Better to face it with friends than alone. As Wells departed to join the other diplomats, Vrazak turned back to the observation window, watching the stars. When he had joined the expeditionary force decades ago, the mandate had been clear. Explore, observe, gather intelligence on potential threats and allies. Never in his considerable lifespan had he imagined that a simple observation mission gone wrong would lead to potentially reshaping the power dynamics of the entire sector. His communicator chimed. Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Science Officer Zend at the Academy. Already? Vrazak sighed. What have they done now? Sir, she reports that the human called Tyler has, well, she says he's improved the quantum entanglement communicator. Efficiency increased by 28%. He's been here less than an hour. Yes, sir. She says he took one look at it and said, and I quote, "Oh, you guys are still using a linear configuration for the containment field? That's cute." Vrazak made a sound that didn't translate well through any known language matrix. "Tell Zend I'll be there shortly, and remind our staff that the humans are to be supervised at all times." Sir, Zend says they've already tried that. Apparently, the female human, Kate, suggested some modifications to our security protocols that were, and again I'm quoting, too elegant not to implement immediately. For a moment, Vrazak seriously considered retirement. A nice, quiet existence on one of the Zentari colony worlds, far from humans and their chaotic brilliance. But curiosity had always been his defining trait. It was what had made him successful in the expeditionary force. And if there was one thing humans inspired, it was curiosity. "Tell Zend I'm on my way," he said, resigned to whatever fresh chaos awaited. 3 years later, in the newly constructed Joint Species Research Facility orbiting Neptune, General Vrazak, now Ambassador Vrazak, stood beside Ambassador Wells as they watched the first test of the quantum fold drive. "Your daughter's work?" Vrazak asked, observing the complex equations scrolling across the monitoring station. "Partially," Wells nodded. "Kate developed the theoretical framework. Finn engineered the containment systems. And Tyler," he chuckled. "Tyler made it work when everyone else said it couldn't." "Those three continue to be remarkable," Vrazak admitted. On the main view screen, a small unmanned test vessel shimmered and distorted before vanishing completely. "Test successful," announced the Zentari Human Joint Science Team. "Vessel has emerged at the target coordinates near Alpha Centauri. Transit time, 0.0082 seconds. Applause erupted throughout the control room. The humans with their hands, the Zentari with various appendages creating percussive sounds. Years of collaboration had created a genuine camaraderie between the species. "Hard to believe this all started with an unauthorized abduction," Wells remarked quietly. "The universe works in strange ways," Vrazak agreed. "Though I'm still not convinced it wasn't some elaborate human stratagem. It worked out suspiciously well for Earth." Wells laughed. "I assure you, General, we didn't plan to have our children kidnapped by aliens just to force a technological alliance. And yet here we are." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal from the communications officer, a human and Zentari working in tandem. "Ambassadors, we're receiving a distress call from the Keplerian sector. It's a Zentari research vessel under attack." "By whom?" Vrazak demanded. "Unknown vessels, sir, not matching any known configuration in our database." Wells and Vrazak exchanged glances. "Send the data to the Defense Council immediately," Wells ordered. "And recall all test vessels." As the facility burst into coordinated emergency action, Vrazak couldn't help but reflect on the irony. 3 years ago, humanity had been considered a minor species, barely worth studying except as an anomaly for defeating the Kronos. Now they were equal partners in the most advanced scientific collaboration in known space, with a joint defense fleet that made the Kronos Armada look primitive by comparison. And it had all started because Lieutenant Krill couldn't follow simple instructions about observing from a distance. "You're thinking about Krill again, aren't you?" Wells asked, recognizing the particular shade of Vrazak's chromatophores. "His catastrophic blunder may have inadvertently saved both our species," Vrazak admitted. "The intelligence reports suggest that whatever is coming from deep space would have overwhelmed either of us alone." "Humanity has a saying," Wells replied as they hurried toward the emergency briefing room. "Sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the best outcomes." "We have a similar concept," Vrazak said. "Though in our language it translates closer to even a navigation error can discover new stars." Wells smiled grimly as they joined the gathering of human and Zentari military strategists. "Let's hope our particular error discovered enough new stars to face whatever's coming our way." On the central display, the unknown vessels were shown approaching Zentari space with a configuration unlike anything in the database. But unlike 3 years ago, when humanity and the Zentari had faced each other as potential enemies, now they stood united, ready to face the galaxy's unknown threats together. And somewhere in the research division, 3 once abducted teenagers, now respected scientists, were already working on technologies that would once again defy expectations and rewrite the possibilities of what could be achieved when species collaborated rather than competed. The unknown vessels would soon discover what the Kronos had learned and the Zentari had come to respect. Underestimating humanity was a dangerous mistake, but facing a humanity with allies who understood and appreciated their unique approach to problem-solving, that wasn't just dangerous. It was, as the humans would say, a whole new ballgame. In the tactical briefing room, officers from both species rapidly assessed the incoming threat. Display screens showed the unknown vessels, 12 in total, moving with disturbing precision through Zentari space. Configuration suggests a hive mind structure, noted the Zentari tactical officer. Each vessel appears semi-autonomous, but operating in perfect coordination. Weapons capabilities? Asked the human Admiral Reeves. Unknown, but energy signatures are concerning, replied a human science officer. They're emitting radiation patterns inconsistent with known propulsion systems. Ambassador Wells leaned toward Vrazak. Reminds me of something from our old science fiction. We called them berserker ships, autonomous weapons designed to eliminate all organic life. A charming concept, Vrazak muttered. Your species has a disturbing imagination. It served us well, Wells replied. The tactical display updated as the unknown vessels destroyed a small Zentari outpost. The brutality and efficiency of the attack silenced the room momentarily. No communication attempts, reported the communications officer. They're not responding to any hailing frequencies. Admiral Reeves straightened her uniform. I think we've seen enough. These are clearly hostile forces with no interest in dialogue. Ambassador Wells, Ambassador Vrazak, I request authorization to deploy the Joint Defense Fleet. Wells and Vrazak exchanged glances, both understanding the historical significance of the moment. This would be the first official military action of their alliance. Authorization granted, they said almost in unison. As orders were relayed and the fleet mobilized, a junior officer approached nervously. Ambassadors, there's a situation in Research Lab 7. The special consultants are insisting on speaking with you. Wells sighed. Let me guess, Finn, Tyler, and Kate? Yes, sir. They've apparently been analyzing the sensor data and have a proposal. Of course they do, Vrazak said, his chromatophores shifting to the Zentari equivalent of amused resignation. Lead the way. Research Lab 7 was in a state that could generously be described as creative chaos. Holographic projections filled the air. Components of various devices lay disassembled on workbenches, and in the center of it all, 3 humans in their early 20s argued animatedly. Frequency modulation would need to be at least, Finn was saying. Already calculated that, but the power requirements are... Kate interrupted. If we reconfigure the quantum field generator to... Tyler added, his hands moving rapidly through a holographic interface. They all stopped when the ambassadors entered. Ah, perfect timing, Finn exclaimed. We've figured out what those ships are. You have? Wells asked, eyebrows raised. They're autonomous hunter-killers, Kate explained, pulling up detailed schematics. And they're ancient. We're talking technology that predates both our civilizations. How could you possibly know that? Vrazak asked skeptically. The radiation signature, Tyler said, as if it were obvious. It's from a type of fusion reaction that's incredibly inefficient by modern standards, but would have been cutting edge about 20,000 years ago. And, Finn added, we found references to similar vessels in both our species' most ancient records. You call them the Silent Ones. We called them the Void Hunters. Vrazak's chromatophores paled. The Silent Ones are a myth, stories to frighten Zentari hatchlings. Most myths have a basis in fact, Kate pointed out. And both our cultures have legends about machines that hunt living beings across the stars. That's fascinating from an archaeological perspective, Wells said diplomatically. But how does it help us now? Because, Tyler grinned, if they're that old, their defensive capabilities can be countered with a specifically calibrated quantum pulse. Their shields would have no defense against technology that didn't exist when they were designed. And, Finn continued, we've already modified the prototype quantum fold drive to generate exactly that kind of pulse. Vrazak and Wells stared at them. You modified the most advanced piece of technology our species have ever jointly developed. In less than an hour? Wells asked. We've been working on it for about 20 minutes, actually, Kate corrected. The first 40 were spent identifying what we were looking at. Have you tested this modification? Vrazak demanded. The 3 exchanged glances. Define tested, Tyler hedged. We've run simulations, Finn offered. We're about 87% certain it will work, Kate added. 87%, Vrazak repeated flatly, which is pretty good for something we just invented to counter a 20,000-year-old death fleet, Tyler pointed out. Wells sighed. Admiral Reeves is deploying the fleet as we speak. Even if we wanted to try your solution, we don't have time to implement untested technology. Actually, Finn said carefully, we kind of already uploaded the specifications to the defense network. All the ships equipped with QF drive prototypes have the modification ready to deploy. They just need the activation code. There was a moment of stunned silence. You modified the entire fleet's systems without authorization? Wells asked, his voice dangerously quiet. In our defense, Kate said, the approval process would have taken days, and those ships will reach the colony world in less than 3 hours. Also, Tyler added, we're pretty sure the conventional weapons won't work against them. Their hulls are designed to absorb and redirect energy, a quirk of the ancient metallurgy techniques they used. Vrazak's communication device chimed urgently. Ambassador, the fleet has engaged the unknown vessels. Initial reports are concerning, weapons having minimal effect. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 87%, you said? Wells finally asked. 87.3 to be precise, Kate nodded. Wells and Vrazak shared a look that transcended species differences. The universal expression of, what choice do we have? Send the activation codes, Vrazak ordered. On the bridge of the UZS Harmony, the flagship of the joint fleet, Admiral Reeves watched in growing concern as the Allied vessel's weapons seemed to barely scratch the unknown hostiles. All conventional weapons showing minimal effectiveness, Admiral, reported her tactical officer. Energy weapons being absorbed, kinetics bouncing off their hulls. Casualties? She demanded. The Madison and the Voidwalker have taken heavy damage. The Kronos Observer vessel has been destroyed. Reeves allowed herself a grim smile at that last bit. The Kronos had insisted on sending an observer to evaluate the effectiveness of the Alliance. Seemed they'd gotten more of a demonstration than they'd bargained for. Admiral, the communications officer interrupted. Priority message from command. We're to activate Protocol Troublemaker? Reeves frowned. I'm not familiar with... It's authenticated with Ambassador Wells's and Ambassador Vrazak's personal codes, ma'am. What does it entail? Instructions are being transmitted now. It's a modification to the QF drive systems. All ships equipped with prototypes are to form a specific formation and activate on your mark. Reeves studied the tactical display. 7 of her vessels had the experimental drives installed. The pattern indicated would place them in a heptagonal formation surrounding the unknown vessels. This has the fingerprints of our special consultants all over it, she muttered. Very well. Order all QF-equipped vessels to take up the designated positions. Let's see what our resident geniuses have cooked up this time. As the 7 vessels maneuvered into position, Reeves couldn't help but remember the story of how the Alliance had begun, with 3 teenagers who had turned an abduction into a diplomatic opportunity. The same 3 who now held doctorates and security clearances that would make most admirals jealous. Formation achieved, Admiral. All vessels reporting ready. Reeves took a deep breath. Execute Protocol Troublemaker. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a shimmering field of energy connected the 7 vessels, forming a web of quantum entanglement. The unknown vessels seemed to sense the danger, suddenly breaking off their attack patterns and attempting to flee. Too late. A pulse of energy unlike anything Reeves had ever witnessed erupted from the 7 Allied ships simultaneously, converging on the unknown vessels. Where the energy touched, the ancient ships simply came apart. Not in explosions or destruction, but in a systematic decoupling of atomic bonds, as if they were being gently but firmly disassembled at the molecular level. Within moments, where 12 deadly vessels had been, there was nothing but dispersing clouds of component elements. All targets neutralized, reported the tactical officer, sounding stunned. No debris field, they just dissolved. The bridge erupted in cheers and the Zentari equivalent, a harmonized humming that vibrated through the deck plates. Reeves allowed herself a small smile. Send to command. Protocol, Troublemaker successfully executed. All hostile vessels neutralized. Request explanation at earliest convenience. As her crew celebrated around her, Reeves reflected that perhaps the greatest strength of the human Zentari alliance wasn't their combined military might or scientific knowledge. It was the unpredictability that came from merging 2 completely different approaches to problem-solving. The Kronos had learned it the hard way. These ancient vessels had just learned it too. And any other threats lurking in the depths of space would soon discover the same truth. Never underestimate a human, especially a young one. And never, ever underestimate what humans could achieve when they had friends. In the aftermath of what came to be known as the Battle of Keplerian Sector, Vrazak found himself once again in the now familiar position of explaining seemingly impossible events to his superiors. The ancient autonomous vessels known in our mythology as the Silent Ones were indeed real. He concluded his report to the Zentari High Command, and thanks to the combined efforts of our alliance with humanity, they no longer pose a threat. This quantum dissolution pulse technology, said Elder Kozar, leaning forward. It is concerning in its implications. If it could disassemble vessels of such advanced design. The technology has been classified at the highest level, Vrazak assured them, and it requires specific circumstances to deploy. It's not a weapon that could be used conventionally. Still, Elder Misa interjected. The humans devised this in less than an hour, from 3 young specialists? The same 3 who were involved in the initial contact incident, Vrazak confirmed. They have proven to be exceptional even by human standards. And yet you report that Earth has millions of potential minds of similar capability, Elder Kozar said. This is difficult to reconcile with their technological development level. Vrazak's chromatophores shifted thoughtfully. I have developed a theory about this apparent contradiction, Elders. Humans advance in technological bursts rather than the steady progression we're accustomed to. They can make cognitive leaps that seem illogical but yield results. What they lack is not intelligence or creativity. It's longevity and patience. Explain, Elder Misa requested. Their brief lifespans mean each generation must relearn much knowledge before advancing it further. Their societal structures sometimes inhibit collaboration, but when focused on a common goal, with proper resources. Vrazak's chromatophores brightened. They achieve in decades what might take other species centuries. The elders conferred quietly among themselves before Elder Kozar spoke again. We have received a formal communication from the Kronos Imperium, he said, changing the subject. They are displeased about their observer vessel. The observer vessel that violated treaty agreements by entering the battle zone without authorization? Vrazak asked innocently. The same. Elder Kozar's mandibles clicked in the Zentari equivalent of a dry chuckle. They have, however, expressed interest in discussing potential trade agreements with the Alliance. How surprising, Vrazak remarked. Their interest wouldn't be related to the demonstration of our new defensive capabilities, would it? Almost certainly, Elder Misa said. The question before this council is whether to entertain such discussions. Vrazak considered carefully. Ambassador Wells has a saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. There may be strategic value in limited engagement with the Kronos, provided appropriate safeguards are in place. We will consider your recommendation. Elder Kozar nodded. Your time among humans has clearly influenced your diplomatic approach, Ambassador. Is that a criticism or an observation, Elder? Vrazak asked. Perhaps both, Kozar replied. But results are difficult to argue with. The Alliance has proven more successful than anyone anticipated. The Kronos have been contained. The Silent Ones have been eliminated, and the mysterious signals from the galactic core that troubled our long-range sensors for decades have suddenly ceased. Vrazak blinked in surprise. The signals have stopped. When? Approximately 12 hours after the Battle of Kaplarian Sector, Elder Misa supplied. We are still analyzing possible correlations. A suspicion formed in Vrazak's mind. If you'll excuse me, Elders, I believe I should consult with our human counterparts about this development. You did what? Vrazak's chromatophores cycled through colors so rapidly that the human scientists in the room winced. Finn, Tyler, and Kate had the grace to look slightly abashed, though not, Vrazak noted, particularly repentant. We might have sent a message, Finn admitted. To the galactic core, Tyler added. Using the quantum dissolution pulse as a carrier wave, Kate explained. You sent a message to unknown entities at the galactic core? Vrazak's translator couldn't quite capture the mixture of horror and disbelief in his native speech. Well, they've been sending messages to this sector for decades, Kate pointed out reasonably. It seemed rude not to reply. And what exactly did this message contain? Vrazak asked, dreading the answer. The 3 exchanged glances before Tyler spoke. A primer on our alliance, basic mathematical and scientific principles to establish communication, and an invitation. An invitation, Vrazak repeated flatly. To what, precisely? To join the galactic community, Finn said. We figured any civilization advanced enough to send targeted signals across 30,000 light-years probably has some interesting ideas to share. Vrazak closed all 4 eyes briefly. seeking calm. And the signals from the core have stopped because... Oh, they're not stopped, Kate corrected cheerfully. They've changed frequency and pattern. They're responding to our message format. We've established a communication protocol. You're in communication with an unknown, potentially massively advanced civilization from the galactic core, Vrazak stated, wanting to be absolutely clear. Without authorization from either of our governments. Authorization processes are so slow, Tyler complained. And technically, we're just having a scientific exchange. No promises, no treaties, just conversation. About what? Vrazak demanded. Well, Finn looked excited. They've sent us some really fascinating theoretical models for energy production using what we think are artificial singularities. We've been working on translating their mathematical notation, but the principles seem sound. They also seem really interested in the concept of biological diversity, Kate added. From what we can tell, they're a silicon-based life form with a distributed consciousness model. The idea of individuated carbon-based life is novel to them. Vrazak felt a headache forming in whatever passed for a Zentari brain. How long has this been going on? About 3 days, Tyler said. We were going to tell everyone once we had something concrete to report. Like their estimated arrival time? Kate suggested. Arrival time? Vrazak's chromatophores flashed in alarm. Well, they asked if they could send representatives, Finn explained casually. Seems only polite to say yes, given we're the ones who initiated contact. When? Vrazak managed. Based on their indicated propulsion capabilities, about 6 months, Tyler calculated. Give or take a week. Vrazak stared at the 3 humans who had apparently invited an unknown advanced civilization to visit without consulting anyone in authority. They looked back at him with expressions that mixed excitement, scientific curiosity, and just a touch of, maybe we should have mentioned this sooner. Ambassador Wells is going to have a stroke, Vrazak muttered. Dad'll be fine, Kate waved dismissively. He's used to us by now. The High Command, Vrazak continued, will likely demote me back to sanitation duty on a deep space outpost. That seems excessive, Finn frowned. This is first contact with a potentially post-singularity civilization. It's the greatest scientific opportunity in recorded history. It's an unauthorized diplomatic incident with unknown entities of potentially vastly superior technological capability, Vrazak countered. Entities that might have sent the Silent Ones in the first place. Oh, they definitely created the Silent Ones, Tyler nodded. They confirmed as much. Said it was an autonomous defense system from their early developmental period, about 30,000 years ago. They're kind of embarrassed about it now, apparently. Vrazak stared in disbelief. They created those death machines, and you invited them here? In their defense, Kate said, it was 30 millennia ago. Humanity was still figuring out stone tools then. I'm sure they've matured as a civilization. Besides, Finn added, they were really apologetic about the Silent Ones. Said they'd been trying to deactivate the remaining units for thousands of years, but some had gone dormant in deep space where they couldn't track them. So you see, Tyler concluded, we actually helped them clean up an ancient mess. Makes for a great foundation for diplomatic relations. Vrazak let out a sound that his translation matrix couldn't process. 3 years ago, Lieutenant Krill had abducted 3 human teenagers, inadvertently creating an alliance that had reshaped the power dynamics of the sector. Now those same humans, as young adults, had apparently initiated first contact with an ancient, vastly advanced civilization from the galactic core. And somehow, Vrazak reflected, he was still the one who would have to explain it all to everyone in authority. 6 months, you said? He confirmed wearily. Give or take, Kate nodded. Then I suggest, Vrazak said with all the dignity he could muster, that we begin preparing a proper welcome, since the invitation has already been extended. As he departed to break the news to Ambassador Wells and the Joint Command Structure, Vrazak couldn't help but reflect that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, their adaptability, or even their intelligence. It was their absolutely boundless audacity. They looked at the universe not with fear or caution, but with endless curiosity, and the unshakable belief that anything unknown was simply a friend they hadn't met yet. It was terrifying. It was chaotic. And, Vrazak had to admit as his chromatophores settled into a grudging shade of admiration, it was exactly why the alliance worked. Because sometimes the galaxy didn't need careful planning and protocols. Sometimes it needed 3 humans who looked at an ancient, terrifying mystery and thought, I wonder if they want to chat. 6 months later, as representatives from 27 worlds gathered in Earth orbit to witness the arrival of the core civilization's envoys, General-turned-Ambassador Vrazak stood aboard the observation deck of the new Joint Headquarters Station, reflecting on the journey that had brought them all here. "Nervous?" Ambassador Wells asked, joining him at the viewport. "Merely contemplative," Vrazak replied. "It occurs to me that none of this would have happened if Lieutenant Krill had simply followed his orders to observe from a distance." Wells chuckled. "The greatest discoveries often come from mistakes, not plans." "So humans keep telling me." Vrazak's chromatophores shifted in amusement. "Your children have certainly proven the point repeatedly." "Speaking of whom?" Wells nodded toward the other end of the observation deck, where Finn, Tyler, and Kate were engaged in animated discussion with scientists from half a dozen worlds, including several Kronos representatives. "They seem to have adjusted well to their celebrity status," Vrazak observed. "Too well, perhaps," Wells sighed. "They've been offered positions on no fewer than 12 worlds. The Kronos apparently tried to recruit them with their own research space station." "Your offspring are nothing if not loyal," Vrazak assured him, "though their methods remain unorthodox." Wells smiled wryly. "That's a diplomatic way of putting it." Before Vrazak could respond, alarms sounded throughout the station. Not the harsh klaxons of danger, but the ceremonial tones announcing the imminent arrival of their guests. "Showtime," Wells murmured. The vast view screen dominating the observation deck activated, showing real-time imagery from the designated arrival coordinates 1 million kilometers from Earth. Hundreds of dignitaries from worlds throughout the sector fell silent in anticipation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to ripple, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a falling stone. A point of light appeared, expanded, and then there was no massive ship, no fleet of vessels. Instead, a series of crystalline structures materialized, geometric forms that seemed to shift and change as they moved, ranging from the size of a small shuttle to constructions larger than a Zentari cruiser. "Core envoys have arrived," announced the station's AI. "Communication protocols established." The central crystalline structure pulsed with light in patterns that somehow seemed both random and precisely ordered. The station's advanced translation systems processed the information. "Greetings, Alliance of Carbon and Zentari," came the translated message, flowing across communication screens throughout the station. "We are the collective consciousness of the core. We accept your invitation to discourse and exchange. Our gratitude to the 3 initiators for opening this dialogue." All eyes turned to Finn, Tyler, and Kate, who looked simultaneously proud and slightly embarrassed at being singled out by an ancient civilization in front of the assembled dignitaries of 27 worlds. As formal greetings were exchanged and the carefully choreographed first contact protocols began, Vrazak found himself standing beside the 3 humans who had, through a series of increasingly improbable events, helped reshape the geopolitical structure of a significant portion of the galaxy. "I suppose congratulations are in order," he said dryly. "You've managed to successfully contact an advanced civilization without creating an interstellar incident. This time." Finn grinned. "See? We're growing as people." "Learning from our mistakes," Tyler agreed. "Showing mature judgment," Kate added with a straight face that cracked into a smile moments later. Vrazak's chromatophores cycled through patterns that the humans had learned to recognize as Zentari laughter. "I've given up expecting conventional behavior from you 3. The galaxy would likely be a duller place without your particular brand of chaos." As the initial formalities concluded and the various diplomatic teams prepared for more substantive discussions, Ambassador Wells approached the group. "The core representatives have specifically requested that you 3 participate in the scientific exchange sessions," he informed them. "It seems you've made quite an impression during your unauthorized communications." "We tried to be good ambassadors," Finn said earnestly. "Despite the unorthodox beginning," Wells acknowledged, "you did well. The core civilization seems genuinely eager to establish peaceful relations." "They're particularly interested in our alliance structure," Kate explained. "The idea of different species voluntarily collaborating as equals is novel to them. They've spent most of their existence in isolation," Tyler added. "Until recently they weren't even sure other intelligent life existed. That's why they created the Silent Ones, autonomous probes meant to explore and protect their interests while they focused on internal development." "Yes, about that," Vrazak interjected. "Have they mentioned any other early developmental period technologies we should be concerned about?" The 3 exchanged glances. "Well," Finn began cautiously, "they did mention some experiments with artificial wormhole technology. And possibly a few self-replicating resource harvesters," Tyler added. But they're pretty sure most of those either shut down or evolved into independent civilizations of their own by now, Kate hastened to add. Vrazak and Wells shared a look of resigned acceptance. This, it seemed, was their new normal. A galaxy far stranger and more complex than either of their species had imagined, navigated with the help of 3 humans who had never met a boundary they wouldn't enthusiastically vault over. The core representatives will be transferred to the station within the hour, Wells informed them. Try not to revolutionize galactic politics again before dinner, please. As Wells departed to rejoin the diplomatic contingent, Vrazak regarded the 3 humans thoughtfully. When Lieutenant Krill abducted you that day, he said, did you have any inkling of where it would lead? You mean, did we plan to create an interstellar alliance, defeat ancient autonomous death machines, and initiate first contact with a post-singularity civilization? Finn asked. Not specifically, Kate admitted. But it's worked out pretty well, don't you think? Tyler grinned. Vrazak's chromatophores settled into the particular shade of blue that the humans had come to recognize as his equivalent of fond exasperation. That, he said, may be the understatement of the galactic cycle. As the observation deck bustled with activity around them, Vrazak reflected on the strange journey that had brought them all here. It had begun with a mistake, an unauthorized abduction that should have been a simple scientific observation. It had continued through diplomatic incidents, technological exchanges, military alliances, and now first contact with a civilization older than any of their recorded histories. And through it all, the constant factor had been humanity's remarkable ability to turn chaos into opportunity, to face the unknown not with fear, but with curiosity, and to make friends where others might have made enemies. It was, Vrazak decided, a distinctly human kind of magic, and the galaxy was undoubtedly more interesting for it. Humanity, fuck yeah indeed.